Welcome to Women Igniting Change, the place to be for women leaders and decision makers who are passionate about changing the world and determined to act. I'm your host, Robbin Jorgensen, former corporate executive, global speaker, and founder and CEO of Women Igniting Change. Let's dive in. Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the Women Igniting Change podcast. Today, we're going to dive into a powerful tool in the world of social impact, and that is storytelling. So whether you are looking to inspire change, engage supporters, or share your journey, effective storytelling can really transform the way that your message is received. So, how do you take your audience on an emotional and a sensory journey that not only captivates them, but also compels them into action? Before we dive into that, I want to explore the why behind storytelling. So why does storytelling even matter and why is it important? It's more than just telling of events. It's really about making connections. And it's how we turn abstract ideas and emotions into action. And great stories foster that human connection while making sometimes really complex ideas understandable and relatable at the same time. Storytelling can also introduce new topics into the public dialogue. It can engage people as active participants in something, and it can also share valuable lessons from both successes and failures. So as you're thinking about how you want to craft your social impact story and get that message out there, I want to give you 3 key steps to follow. And step number 1 is to be strategic. So being strategic with your storytelling is absolutely crucial, because before you can even begin to craft your story, you need to be really clear about what you want to achieve. So you might be sharing your story in order to raise awareness around your social impact. It could be educating your audience on some key elements around that social change that maybe they're unfamiliar with. Or it could be you're enrolling them to actually mobilize them into action, but really understand what that is. And also, to the degree that you can, understanding the interests and motivations of your specific audience is also going to help you really tailor and craft that storytelling message to them directly. So now, whether you're standing in front of like a large venue and you're on a stage, or you're delivering this story in a small group in a meeting room, you also want to consider how people best like to receive information. And there's several ways that you can do this. There's a test called the Kolbe exam, and it was founded by this amazing woman, Kathy Kolbe, I think probably nearly 45 years ago at this point. And this is an assessment tool that we use with all of our corporate clients. And it's a way to ensure that when you're delivering information, the people on the other side, your audience, is receiving it in a way that fits for them. So the first category is what's called a fact finder. So fact finders are those individuals that they love data, they love analytics, they love being in the weeds, they want to know all of the information. So as you're putting this story together, the way to satisfy a fact finder is to make sure that you have case studies, or you have data, or you have metric points to incorporate into your social impact storytelling. That's going to satisfy the fact finder. Another category of the Kolbe is called a quick start. Quick starts are those individuals that they love to be taken on a journey. They love to know the vision of what you're trying to put out there. They want you to paint them a picture and use imagery and graphics and amazing visual presentations. So the degree that you can, that's going to satisfy the quick start when you take them on a journey and share the vision of what you want to put out into the world and make sure that you're including photos and that kind of thing. That's going to satisfy the quick start. Now, if you're doing this in front of a small group, you're going to be able to do the last one that I'm going to mention, which is implementer. You're not going to be able to do this necessarily if you're on a stage in a very large venue. An implementer it's not implementing like a program or a project. It's physical, tangible implements like a pen, glasses, your phone. So for the implementer, to the degree that you can, having some type of handout or a PowerPoint deck that they can physically hold, touch, and feel while you're delivering the story, that's going to satisfy the implementer. So to the degree that you can, really try to incorporate all 3 of those aspects into your storytelling, because that's going to ensure that your audience is receiving it in the way that they're going to listen best. All right, step number 2 is to be authentic. Just be you. The most impactful stories are those that are told with passion and sincerity. And trust me, your audience can absolutely feel the difference. So be authentic. Share your personal connection. Like, why does this matter to you? And how has this touched your life? A lot of times, the social impact journey that we want to go on comes from personal lived experience, or it's something that we were exposed to. And that's our case in Rwanda, that just kind of called us into it, and we couldn't help but be a part of it. So share that and be authentic. And that really does create a lasting bond with your audience when you're that authentic, because it really distinguishes you from the noise of other people out there. And part of being authentic is to share your personal journey. So don't be afraid to let your audience know what drove you to want to put this social change out there. And when I share the story of us beginning to work in Rwanda, I also include the story of how we got there in the first place. And you can go back, I think it's episode number 2, to hear that story. But it's a really pivotal moment for us as an organization. And it's a pretty cool story as well. So make sure that you share that personal nature of why you got involved in this. It might have been a particular event or a person that inspired you, but those type of stories really resonate deeply, and they can really influence your audience's emotional engagement into what you're saying to them. And step number 3 is to be compelling. To be compelling, you need to structure your story effectively. So having a good story arc can really increase the impact of your message. So start by introducing who you aim to serve. Then take them up into what are some of the challenges and the strengths of that audience. And then dive into your vision of what you want to do, and then dive into how you're going to make that happen. And that really tells the arc of the story, where you're taking your audience on a journey. And then at the end of that, be sure that you're crafting a really strong call to action. When you're done sharing this story, what do you want your audience to do next? It might be contributing to your cause. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's collaborating with you on this given social impact project. Or maybe it's simply helping you share the message and get that out to a broader audience. But whatever that is, really craft a solid call to action, or a CTA. I also want you to consider the various ways in which you can share your story. We mentioned a couple already. You could be in a small meeting room with a small group of people. You might be sharing this on stage in front of 100 people. But there are so many ways to get this story out there. You could do it by creating a blog, right, around the given social impact that you want to put out into the world. You could be a guest on different podcasts that are in your given social impact area. You could do a live interview, or be on a panel discussion, or be featured in magazines, and on and on and on. So there's so many different ways to get your message and your storytelling out there. So be really creative in how that happens, and then choose the medium to the degree that you can that best suits your message and your audience. So where does your audience mostly hang out, and ensure that you're speaking to them and meeting them where they are. And lastly, I want to give you some tips on how to present your story. And this is back to whether you're doing this in a small group in a meeting space, or whether you're doing this in a large venue. So this is a live presentation. And you want to be sure when you're doing this that you are presenting it with clarity, with conviction, and very confidently. So tip number 1 is to always begin with a thought-provoking question. And this is a way that really creates engagement from the very start of whatever you're saying. And I'll tell you what ours is. So whenever I'm giving any talk on stage around our social change, the question that I ask is, do you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? Just think about that question for a moment. And as soon as they hear, they're like, whoa, that's a pretty powerful question. It creates immediate engagement between what I'm saying and what I'm about to say. So what is that question for you? So create that really thought-provoking question that you start your storytelling with. Tip number 2 is to continue to create engagement throughout your storytelling and throughout your talk by asking them questions and inviting them to participate. So you could say, occasionally, show of hands, how many of you can relate to X? Or how many of you can empathize with Y? So putting those questions in the middle of your story is going to create that continuous engagement as you're delivering it. Tip number 3 is eye contact. So crucial. Whether it's in a small group or a large venue, intentionally making eye contact with someone throughout your talk is really, really key for that engagement. Tip number 4 is reading the energy of the room. As you look around the room, large or small, are they engaged with what you're saying? Are they really actively paying attention to you, or have they already checked out and maybe they're looking at their phone? And the more that you can read the energy of that room, it allows you to identify if and when you have to shift your approach to call them back into what you're saying. So really read the room. And tip number 5 is to command the room. Take up space and own your presence. This is something that matters to your core. It matters so deeply to you, and getting this message out there and doing something about it is part of your why. So command that space and know that you belong in front of whatever room you're at, and that what you have to say matters. So I hope those tips were helpful for you. Next week, we're going to be back to interview format, and we will see you back here next time. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to Women Igniting Change. I know creating change matters to you. If you enjoy what we talk about on the show, please take one action today and share it with someone who could benefit from listening. Until next time, keep standing up and speaking out for what matters.